This video, we're going to go into a very basic overview of the funnel page builder, as in the page editor. So I'm on the funnels area here. I'm going to click in to my demonstration funnel here. If you didn't have one, you'd go new funnel. I'm going to go into it here. And we have an example step, but I'm actually going to create a new step from scratch because this first one is one that we've used in another video. So I'm going to create a new step with this add a new step button, and we're going to call this basic demonstration. Okay, and you would just set your file, your URL path as well, and we'll go create step. Okay, so a couple of things you can do here. One is you can just reorder this to the correct location if you need to by dragging it up and down in your list. And what we're going to jump in right now is we're going to edit the page. So we simply make sure we have that one selected, and we'll see here basic demonstration, and we hit edit page. So I'm now going to explain the general layout and the functions of how to use the page builder and what all the different menu buttons do, right? So working left to right from the top here, this first arrow button here will take you back to the funnel settings of this funnel and basically exits the page editor. These two buttons here toggle the view that you're looking at. So you'll either be previewing your page and editing in the desktop version or the mobile version like this. Okay, and you can see basically how your site will work. It is always a good idea to actually preview it using the preview button and also loading it on your mobile phone as well, but you can preview and build in either version there. The settings will allow you to edit these various areas here. Metadata, tracking code, custom CSS, the background and typography. These functions are covered in a different video. The pop-up here will allow you to edit what your pop-up is. So if you have a button, for example, that brings up a pop-up display, clicking this button will take you into the editor here, and then you can edit the pop-up settings themselves by hitting this blue button there. Again, that's covered in the video about pop-ups. These two arrows here are the undo button and the redo button. So if you make a mistake or you want to revert back to where you were a few steps ago, you can undo it or you can redo a step. And then over here we have the building elements. We have sections, rows, and columns and elements. So what you can do here is you can click on one and you can add a section, or you can manage your existing sections, and it's the same for all these different elements here. So the way that the page builder works is that elements sit within columns and columns sit within rows and rows sit within sections. And I will map out and show you how that works in a moment. This button here previews the page as it would load, and this button here saves the page. You'll note over here there'll be a circle on this icon if you have unsaved changes. So let's have a look at how it looks in terms of the other menus once you start building. So I'm going to click on section here. I'm going to add a section, and it'll bring up the options as to whether you want to make it full width, wide, medium, or small. Okay, so for example, if you choose medium, you'll see here that I have this green section here, but it doesn't fill the whole width of the page. If, however, I chose a wide section, you can see it's wider again, and then I can choose full width, and it's the full width of the page builder. So that's how that works there. So once you've done this, it'll bring up the section settings. Okay, so these are all over here. And again, we cover this in a different video. We're going to be showing you some advanced ways to use the page builder. But ultimately, this is setting the settings, as it says, for the section area itself. All right, and there's a general level and an advanced level. Okay. Now within that, we can have rows. So you can either click on add row on a blank section, or you can go in here and click add row, and then you can drag your selected style of row into the section, right? So in this case, I've clicked add row, and I'm going to drag a 2-column row into this section, and I drop it here, and now you can see this blue box is my 2-column row, and we see in it we have 2 purple boxes, which are my columns. So you can see at this point I can now manage my sections, and I have one section here. I could manage my rows, and I have one 2-column row, and I can manage the columns, and I have a first column and a second column just here, and you can see them highlight as I move that around. And then you have the elements themselves. So I can go to the row where I want to add the element and click add element, and now this time I just choose the element. So these are all the different items, for example, text elements, forms that would directly add in from your platform, Media such as video and image, custom items such as custom coding, surveys and calendars, and countdown timers, dividers, and even the two-step order element. All right, so these are all the different elements that you can add in. Because this time I just clicked the add element button here, I can just click what I want to use and it will drop right in there. And then again, the settings for each element will be over here in the left-hand side of the editor. And again, we're going to go through these in a second video. So that's basically how your page builder works. So I'm going to quickly show you now how I could add other things to this. So for example, I could add another row to that top section. So I could drag a one column row and it will sit within this section here. See this green box, and now I have two rows, but this row just has one column. And then I could add a video to this and it would sit here. And then what I could do is I could actually add another section, right? So you can see if I hover my mouse just here down the bottom, I'm now showing the section. I could hit the green plus button is another way to do this. And now I can add a new section. So I could add another full width section, and this will sit below the section up here. It's also quite easy to reorder your elements, your columns, your rows, and your sections as well. Because I could look at this page now and say, well, in the process of making this demo, this is quite messy. So what I could say is actually what I want to do is I want to have a single row up the top. So I'm going to click on this blue button here in the row, and a single column, and I'm going to make this a single column. I can then drag this element here by these this four arrow icon here into this element here. And then I can go into this top row, and if I'm having trouble highlighting it the way I want, I mean here I can get to it, but if for some reason I can't get to that, it's not highlighting it the way I want, I can go to rows and I can go to manage, and I can highlight this first column row, and I can use these icons. So I can reorder it like this. I can make its visibility on or off. I can copy it, which would duplicate it like that. Or I can delete it, which is actually what I want to do in this case. So I'm going to delete this row, and then I'm going to delete the next row as well that I copied. Okay, then I just have my headline. I'm also going to say I don't want this other second column row. I'm going to delete that. So now we just have our large headline and our video, and it's all looking a lot neater. And now the last thing I'll show you on this very brief overview video is how to use these sort of icons on the elements and rows and sections themselves, right? So if I close that menu here, I'll see that I can do similar types of things with the actual elements. So for example, this headline here, I can actually copy it with this clone item here, and I can copy it and it will drop just below. So if I can say I'm going to change this, I'm going to double click on it and simply change the text to second line. And what I can do then is I can reorder it. There's a few other icons here, so I can use the arrows to either push it up or down. So I can move it up or I can move it down, or I can use this arrow button here to drag it to where I want it to be, up and down. Note with the dragging option, I can even drag it into new rows and sections completely just like that. Or I can finally use that delete item again, and I can delete it if I don't want it at all. So that's a very basic overview of how this page builder works and how you're using it. So just to quickly revise, you have all the buttons up the top that help you interact with the broader settings of the page. Then on the right hand side you have the building elements being sections, and then within sections you have rows, within rows you have columns, and within the columns that's where your actual elements work. Okay, and then from there, as I said before, you see this little blue circle here. It means you have unsaved changes. You can use this button to save your page. And if you haven't added metadata, it'll give you this warning page that you haven't set this yet. So I'm going to put this in. What this does is it shows you how your page would load and how the page reads organically, i.e. if someone was to look up this page just using a browser, what does this page actually look like? And so you'll see here, basic page, and you'll see populating down the bottom a rough demonstration of how that shows. Okay, so if someone actually saw this on a search ranking, that's where it would go. And if you are using SEO practices, you can insert your keywords, your author, and you can add a social image here as well. Okay, and then you'll see a little preview down here. So I've done that, I'm going to hit save. And once you've done that, you can use this button here to preview the page, and it will show you what it looks like when it loads. And so you can see my page just here. So again, very basic overview. In the next video, we're going to build out a page and I will show you how to actually use all the settings to make adjustments when using the page builder, either using it from scratch or editing an existing page.